Hello, everyone. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending upon which part of the world you are in, what time zone you're in. My name is Manoj Agrawal. I'm the group editor at Banking Frontiers, a magazine that has been around since 2002. And now, of course, we're present increasingly in the digital and video format. I welcome you all to our webinar today on the topic of observability and how AI is making a difference, is making an impact. Observability as such is a technical topic, but as you know, the boundaries between technology and business are blurring. And I think we are going to observe in this webinar, in this discussion, online panel discussion, how it is applying increasingly across different domains and creating value for the banks, for the financial sector, for customers, and then ultimately for everyone. So the focus today is more on AI. We have seen that generative AI can do a lot of things, answer your questions, generate images, generate videos, generate stories. It can even make jokes, but not the kind that will make you really laugh. And I tried it out. So generative AI is intelligent. And when we think of intelligent people, one person who surely comes to mind is Sherlock Holmes. And so the question is, can AI be as intelligent an observer as this famous detective? We will perhaps explore that question at the end. But now our main focus is going to explore how AI is helping in observe the immense complexity that AI and business systems are running today in all kinds of financial organizations. In this webinar, I'm talking to three experts. Two are from banks, and one is from an IT company. So we have three men in this room and one lady, and all of us welcome you all to this webinar. Let's start with the introductions. Shuchi Mahajan is a Senior Vice President and Head of Fraud Prevention and Analytics and Customer Awareness at HDFC Bank. Welcome, Shuchi.
Thank you so much, Manoj. Pleasure being here.
Yes. So to give a little background, Shuchi is a seasoned business leader and a banker with over 20 years of experience in the financial sector. She has a strong track record in various areas: sales, marketing, customer behavior, product development, fraud prevention, analytics, and digital solutions. I'm sure she's going to conquer many new areas in the days to come. My next person in the virtual room is Prasanna Venkatesh. He's a senior technology leader at Federal Bank. He has over 23 years of experience in driving innovation and transformation across both Indian and international financial service organizations. He has extensive experience in leveraging AI in the financial space to drive operational efficiency, to enhance risk management, to automate processes, to improve customer service. He currently heads AI and digital channels. Welcome, Prasanna. Looking forward to hearing your insights.
Thank you, Manoj. Thank you. Pleasure being here.
And my third guest is Rao Haridasu. He is the Chief of Staff and Business Strategy at VuNet Systems. VuNet is the company that makes software that links IT systems performance to business metrics and business journey performance. To introduce him, he has over 25 years of experience spanning IT services, platform-led managed services, and product innovation. He specializes in large-scale technology and business transformation. He has been closely associated with monitoring and the observability space for over a decade. So collectively, our three panelists have around 70 years of experience, and that's a lot. That's a lot. So on behalf of Banking Frontiers and on behalf of the viewers, I welcome all three of you. And I look forward to a insightful discussion and some meaningful insights coming out. To help make the discussion interactive and meaningful and focused, I would like to introduce something I call as the Maggie rule. Maggie is something that you're supposed to be able to make in 2 minutes and enjoy it. My Maggie rule says that if you can focus your conversation and convey your message in 2 minutes, then everyone will find your message, your communication, your stories delicious and enjoyable, and they will thank you for that. So please observe the Maggie rule in this conversation. So my first question is very straightforward. What types of system challenges and system disruptions are most common these days, especially in that high volume, highly scalable, highly flexible digital financial ecosystem that we are in today? And in this scenario, how good are our systems at observing the performance, observing the disruptions, and perhaps even forecasting them? So, how are we good at getting the big picture and getting that particular narrow down view of the systems that we are running?
From a business perspective, we've seen now with everything being digital and so many digital journeys, we cut across multiple microservices for a single transaction. Now, something as simple and as a small example of UPI. Today, we can make 5 rupee transactions to a chaiwala, but look at that small transaction of 5 rupees cuts across uh, NPCI, a TPAP, a payment beneficiary platform, a switch, plus a lot of other checks that happen with multiple APIs running parallelly, trying to check whether the account is live, whether there is balance, can you send that money across, is the merchant valid, and so on and so forth. Now imagine if one of these threads break, it has a cascading effect to the entire next level of thread that happens, and then it's a disruption. And by the time you know it, the damage kind of is done, because it happens so fast that it's the customers who will start talking about it, and the impact you will understand is when you realize that transactions start failing, customers are writing on social media, and so on and so forth. The other thing is OTP. Without an OTP, a transaction doesn't happen. Of course, UPI is an exception because you use the UPI pin there. Now, in terms of OTPs, if there is a delay in OTP delivery, again, stagnation, right? Suddenly the transaction will stop working, people will write all over social media, and if it's just you, then Amazon and all other platforms will write, we are seeing failure, very high failures on this, and then your reputational risk goes for a toss, right? So disruption is magnified now what it was about a decade ago. With social media, with the complications in all the tech developments that we have, it's just magnified. So which is where I think it becomes very, very important to keep very, very closely observing, not just what is breaking, but why is it breaking, and have a 360-degree view, and then kind of figure out. A lot of us are doing different things on this aspect, but I think disruption has gotten magnified with the complexity of digital transactions and the magnitude of digital transactions, plus the social media awareness of people.
Thank you. That social media does magnify. So even if it is a small percentage of people feeling the disruption, it feels as if really it's a large scale. And of course, while you were talking that, I was thinking of the supply chain disruptions that we've seen around the world, thanks to tariffs and all that. And there, the media and social media, everyone is amplifying those kind of disruptions as well. So I think everyone is very conscious of disruption of any kind, of dropping in levels of service. Right. Thank you, Suchi.
Before I, address your actual question, Manoj, I want to probably, take a step back and, talk to you about some of the weird statistics that people are probably not aware of, right? A couple of years back, I remember reading about 50% of financial, institutions report about, outage that lasts for more than 30 minutes on a daily basis, right? So it's a crazy amount of number. And about 70% of them literally take more than about 30 minutes. You may say, 30 minutes is fine. We can live with, disruption. But 30 million literally, in a complicated ecosystem, just take an Indian, financial industry, it would result in millions of dollars of loss. Right.
Right.
That's a huge number that we're talking about. And most of these downtimes that Suchi spoke about, right? UPI, the way the country has expanded and exploded in a way in terms of digital infrastructure and digital payments is, I mean, it's unlike any other country in the world, right? So we are a flag bearer of probably the largest set of digital transactions in the world. The impetus is on us to sort of have the observability tools in place to ensure that downtimes are minimal. Of course, there are going to be some crazy events like we've had some. Yesterday was another typical one, right? A Cloudflare outage that resulted in so many I think Twitter users or X users or Spotify and all those platforms were impacted. If there was an AI model that was looking at any of these telemetry data that were coming out of these systems, there would have been possibilities to proactively sort of arrest it, right? So yeah, I mean, and also coming from a typical banking scenario, you take the likes of Suchi, who comes from HDFC, me, a federal bank. We are legacy banks at the end of the day, right? And there are several legacy applications that are floating around. However much we try to modernize our applications, there are always, legacy applications. A typical example would be a core banking, right? Today, a core banking application would have to, stitch together a transaction, using multiple sort of API calls internally, right? That may not be visible to a customer. A customer would just get a 404, sort of an error and says, okay, it's not working. But for us, there'll be like so many different sort of API hops and multiple skip and jumps to ensure a transaction is going through successfully, and that's one of the major sort of areas, right? Suddenly we see a scan and pay, for example, doesn't work. For what reason? We don't know. We'll have to go back and look at sudden spike in volume. The resources are less. Wherever it is getting processed. Things like this, which is a common sort of an item that we see. And of course, all banks have typically, I mean, largely all institutions typically have some sort of a telemetry data observability stack where we kind of proactively, at least on paper, to satisfy our auditors, we do look at all these items. But we are a far cry from where we could be, given the fact that AI is probably revolutionizing how we can look at telemetry data today. Largely, the tools that we use do claim that there's a lot of AI inbuilt, but there's still a lot of manual involvement that's happening, right? And that's where I think AI would sort of bridge the gap and give us a proactive one-up, sort of an approach over a reactive legacy approach that we've had.
That's interesting. Definitely. Prevention is better than cure. Everyone knows that. And I think observability is the footsteps to prevention, is the kind of message I'm getting from you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Let's move on to Rao. What kind of Maggie are you going to serve us today, Rao?
So the Maggie word for observability is OLLY, OLLY, if you would like to use that.
Okay.
But I think Suji and Prasanna have framed this so well. But traditionally, when we look at system disruption, we look at it in terms of an outage, right? Unavailability of systems. But today we live in a world of Maggie, instant gratification, right? A delay in any service means, as the consumer, I have another option of another app, right? And as highlighted, every request, in fact, triggers 300 different APIs in the backend, right? And therefore, the experience is sum total of how individually all of these APIs, moving parts, multiple ops, all come together, which means it could be an external API, it could be a fintech provider, it can cause problem. It's about identifying the weakest link. So we did a analysis in one of our customers in terms of the incident data over the last 3 months. So what came out, as insights, it's not about systems going down, applications failing, APIs not able to scale. It's all mundane things. Around 30% of incidents were all related with how the network is responding to the load and the scale that is coming in. How are external APIs and external providers responding to the deluge of requests and peak and non-peak, responses? And the other bigger insight in terms of the what is contributing to this outage is all around configuration changes, right? We are rapidly putting in so many fixes, so many new features. So introducing all of this means there are too many moving parts in a complex banking environment. These interconnected systems. So therefore, a small issue with any one small component can lead to a customer experience issue, a frustration, and a disruption. So in summary, it's all about managing all these moving parts and ready for the weakest link, or ready to identify that weakest link. And how we do it is using Oli, and how AI can empower Oli to be more precise.
Systems are very dynamic. They're getting upgraded, updated. New connections are emerging literally on a daily basis. So let's then go on to the next point, which is that with more and more interconnected systems, so bank connected to an insurance company, connected to an Amazon, connected to an airline, connected to a search engine, connected to some kind of UPI system, all those kind of interconnectivity. What should an organization aim for in terms of observability across the spectrum? It's good to have your own monitoring your own systems, but is some API somewhere else down, or is it overloaded or underperforming? If there are system changes happening in other organizations, how does that reflect on the customer experience at a bank or a BFSI company can give its customers? And not just customers, actually partners. So maybe an airline customer is also a customer indirectly. Someone who's booking a ticket on an airline or trying to claim insurance for lost baggage or whatever.
So from the way I see it, observability is no longer looking at data in silos on what broke and how do you, till earlier, till some time back, whenever we looked at data, it was like, what is failing? And we would just look at it from that perspective. But I think it's more 360 degrees. It's not just about what is failing. It is also about where all it's impacting while it's failing. Why is it failing? Because at the end of the day, if you don't marry the what and the why of the data, then your solutioning to solve the problem is going to be something very, very different. Because you look at the what, you assume this is why, rather than actually looking at actuals of why, and realize you fixed the wrong thing, right? And then finally, how do you try and build that in your monitoring so that it does not happen again? That is the entire 360 degrees of observability. And for example, you see that a lot of transactions are getting declined, okay, hypothetically. Now, generally, the blame straight away goes to tech.
Right.
Because there's something breaking in your system. Your response is not coming on time. Now, which is where I said the what and the why of the data is very important. Can you dig deep whether the failures are happening for the right reasons? Are you seeing unnecessary social media flare up? Because if it's happening for the right reasons, you will not see the flare up happening on social media. So you can rule out something that is not really happening. Then if it's not happening for the wrong reasons, then you go deep dive and understand, are there some hacking attempt that is happening in the system which we are stopping and hence thinking that the transactions are failing? Or are there some fraudulent attempts happening from somewhere because of which our systems are good enough and we are declining transactions? Now, when you marry this what and the why of the data, which you would have otherwise not done, you would have been sitting in a war room trying to waste everybody's time and trying to figure out and trying to solve for a problem which never existed in the first place. Right? So which is where that 360-degree approach becomes very, very important. It will also be the other way around when you're actually not, the transactions are failing for the wrong reasons. Then also this 360-degree approach will matter, because you will hear signals coming from social media, from customer complaints. And if you deep dive into that, you will also be able to figure out the what and the why of the data, marry that, and then try to fix the problem. rather than just look at things in silos. So I think this 360 approach is something which is extremely important when you're looking at observability, which not only cuts across the tech teams, but cross-functional. And everyone will take out something from it for themselves, for the future, or for the incident.
Absolutely, that makes sense. And in fact, while you were speaking, I was reminded of, again, going back to Sherlock Holmes. It's not that he has a sharper vision like an eagle and he can see things that the
He's just
normal
a great
eye cannot
observer.
see. He is a great observer. He can correlate this
Absolutely.
with that. This should have happened in the morning. This happened in the evening. Why? So
Yes.
that why, keep asking that why much more frequently begins to create value in the system. That sounds good. So, Prasanna, you are the next batsman.
Sure. So I'll tell you, honestly, from a practical, practically what happens on the ground today, large, complex sort of a landscape that we live in. Of course, we have data centers, we have on-prem, applications running continuously, sort of communicating with external, parties like an NPCI or a UPI switch, or maybe a cloud based application. Multiple things that is happening for sure. What is probably missing today is, of course, we get telemetry from all sorts of data individually, right? From all sorts of applications. There's continuously data flowing through our, Kafka pipelines are full of events and, things like that. That's happening all the time. But what we probably lack is, most organizations do not have, like what Suchi mentioned, this 360-degree sort of a view of what's happening in their landscape, right? We don't really know. We may be looking at, problems elsewhere where the root cause could be lying elsewhere too. That is a bigger, time, that we spend on, chasing these hunches. This could be a problem. There was a system upgrade that happened. There was a vulnerability that was fixed, and that could have resulted in this, and things like that. There are several items that keep happening on a daily basis. I think one of the things that we as an organization should try and implement is first get the infrastructure in terms of getting your overall 360-degree, right? Today, if you ask me, honestly, how many of us do that? Not many of us, right? We are probably, throwing darts at problems that, like Sachi mentioned, do not exist, and we are looking at, we're probably missing the bigger picture. And tools like VuNet, for example, right? I don't know how many of you have used it, and even to the listeners. Not that I'm trying to promote the product. I've never worked with them, but I have a little bit of knowledge on the product, right? It does give that kind of a 360 view, right? It gives you a sort of a diagrammatic representation of all your connections, and then continuously monitoring and color coded sort of an observation in terms of something is red, something is green, something is tending to an amber. What is happening in your ecosystem? Those kind of intelligent systems that we need to have, which of course without AI you can't build it, because it's humanly impossible to crunch millions of data bytes that are coming in from various applications. It's not easy, and that's why we need telemetry tools. We need an AI layer that would look at all these sort of aspects, look at intelligently, not just look at problem in isolation, but look at all the other aspects, like what Suchi mentioned, the 360-degree, and that's what is needed today, and that's probably why we are chasing the monkey by its tail, right? That's where the problem is.
And Rao, how would you correlate with how technology is helping achieve that 360-degree vision and matching the how and the why, the what and the why? How is technology evolving? How is VuNet looking at these kind of things?
And what and the why is very important, Manoj, right? As Suchi highlighted, Prasanna added some color to it. But let me just give but the lens through which you look at the how and the why, right? That is important as well, right? Let me give an example. Again, in one of our recent customer deployments, there was an incident about customers' payments failing, right? As is the case, infrastructure says it's green, the network says it's green, the application says it's green, core banking says it's green. So put together everything, IT says it's green, right? But if you go deeper, if you look at it from a business standpoint, a transaction like UPI has multiple attributes to it. And one of them is about there are synchronous legs of a transaction, there are asynchronous legs of a transaction.
Okay.
And the sum total of a user experience, what an end consumer gets on their mobile app, is some of the synchronous and asynchronous legs, right? Which means you need to monitor all the moving parts of a transaction. For that, you need to have a business lens to which you are evaluating what is happening. And the business context with which you are looking at this becomes very important, right? Correlation helps in correlating, but what are you correlating? If you are able to build a data foundation layer where you are ingesting information from all of these moving parts, then you are able to look at it through a lens of a business. Therefore, the way a credit card transaction may function or a lending transaction could function will be completely different. It's already in a lending transaction that it takes few minutes for it to complete, whereas in a card transaction, instant payment, it's all about instant completion. So I think the context of the technical metrics is always there that we all ingest, but looking at it from a business context to correlate this intelligently so that the insights that you create from it helps the business teams, helps the IT teams to bridge the gap in terms of what is the business impact and what in IT is contributing to the business impact, Manoj.
Got it. Got it. That definitely makes sense. Which brings me to my next point, which again, going to the business construct that you talked about, Rao. That customer is not just looking at a transaction as a machine. There's a human being who's looking at. The human being has expectations. How user friendly is the engagement, is the transaction? Do I have a choice of languages? Do I have a choice of fonts? Can I speak with the system? What am I used to? Does the system recognize what choices I made? So, Suchi, coming to you, can you give the business perspective of how observability can help a bank bring that subjective customer experience to a higher level? Can observability catch some of the problems and help solve some of the opportunities?
Of course. So while you said subjectivity is more customer centric, I kind of think observability comes even in the internal observability where we also get subjective sometimes, and I'll give you examples for both.
Okay.
But first, let's look at the customer. Now, from a customer's perspective, she was trying to do something. It didn't work, right? So she's not completely subjective in saying that it did not work. She's not 100% objective by telling you exactly what did not work. But that is on you to figure out from the customer what exactly was the issue.
Right.
It's like any family member that we are with, right? Generally, when even something as basic as food, the food's not nice today. What is not nice in the food? Is the salt less? Is the chili more? What exactly is the problem? And that is where the communication, the interaction helps you get the entire story around what is not working and why is it not working, right?
Mhm.
And that is where your social media brings in a lot of trends. Like is it only one customer saying now subjectivity also comes in? I don't like the color of your app. It's too blue. I'm sorry. If I make it red, there'll be 100 other people who may not like it.
Right.
So those kind of subjectivities is also things that you may want to filter out. But if the color of the UI is impacting the readability of your text, then it's a problem. And
Yes.
that is where it becomes very important, as I was talking about, not blindly looking at what the problem is, but also realizing why the problem is a problem. That what and why of the data, which is where the subjectivity has to get married with the objectivity, and you are able to find a result. And coming to, again, the internal subjectivity that I was talking to, and I have a very interesting example. A lot of our customers use the mobile phones for internet banking. They don't use the desktop, they use the mobile phone. They don't use the app, they'll use a mobile phone. And we noticed a trend that a lot of customers are clicking on update contact details and not updating it. Right?
Really? Okay.
Right? So, like, why would that happen? You would blame technology, you would blame everything else. All of that was happening, and everybody obviously went in the war room and trying to figure out, boss, 70% drop off is huge. 70% is just a number I'm quoting.
Okay.
All we did was pick up 100 customers who had the issue yesterday, speak to them, and the answer was so simple. Boss, your logout and update contact details are right next to each other. I was clicking on our logout. And because it's a mobile phone, I clicked on update by mistake, which is why I never updated, because I did not need to. The solution was as simple, just increase the distance. But because we did not really think, and that's what most organizations do even today. We don't really take that 360-degree view of the subjective, objective, internal things, and we land up kind of solving up for a problem which doesn't exist and not solving the problem which lands up existing. So yeah, that's my take on it.
That's a fantastic example of capturing the subjectivity issues that arise. Again, human beings are not machines. We are largely intuitive and emotional in the way we engage with things. Only when it comes to refined things, we try to get rational or logical. That's good. I think that's good learning. So even if everything is green, so essentially what you're saying, if the observation technology is saying everything is green, but still the customer is unhappy,
There is
it's a
something
problem.
else too. Yes.
There's a hidden red somewhere.
Yes.
Right. Prasanna, any perspective on this from you?
Sure. Firstly, let me, tell you today's market or today's customer is expecting a bank app to work like a Swiggy or a Zomato or an Amazon, right? The level of user experience that they are demanding is, they're not looking at banking as just, banking, right? Today, if you look at any of our fintech platforms, right, the kind of gamification that's there on those platforms, like a Google Pay, for example, or, any of those apps that are there, they are looking at more interactive sort of a platform, right? For example, let me tell you another earth-startling statistics, right? Customers spend, I don't know the number, I think it's about 100,000 hours or something being on hold in a voice in a contact center, right? Globally, right? This is the amount of hours. There is a number to it, I forget the number, but there's a number to it which is a shockingly large 7-digit number, where people are spending that much time talking to, trying to get their queries resolved. For example, you were shopping on a website or you were using your mobile app, to do some transaction. The transaction, your money got debited, but the transaction, failed, for example, right? I think a lot of mechanisms have been put in place now. People used to panic a lot, when this happened. Imagine if we had an AI system, a system which would look at these transactions even before I could even look at a chat window or a support, reach out to them. If I'm able to, proactively tell my customer, hey, you know what, I see there's a problem. Do not worry about it. We're fixing it. We will ensure that the refund happens immediately. If the vendor has not received the payment, we will issue the refund immediately. Do not worry. We got you. You don't have to contact us for this. We'll ensure that this happens, right? This is the kind of expectation that the customer has today. Your Swiggy, you order something on Swiggy and it doesn't arrive in the shape and form that you desired. Milk packet was broken, your eggs were broken, whatever, right? You just need to tell them that this happened and they would immediately refund it, right? That's the kind of customer support that the customers are expecting today. How many banks are able to provide that? It's far and few, right? We still have a long way to go in terms of achieving this customer delight, so to speak, right? Experience is one, but delight is what we are all chasing. Another, observability, trend is, if I'm able to tap into all the, various different kind of transactions that I'm doing on a daily basis, can I observe a pattern for my user and recommend, intelligent products, use that as a platform to, maybe position some other new product that will just cater to him, right? Truly personalized. We all talk about customer 360 degree and a lot of, abusive words like that, but still, we still have a long way to go in terms of achieving this customer 360, right? We don't know because our, whether we like it or not, data today is sitting in different sort of silos, right? It's in different platforms, different applications. To get that customer 360 right itself is a big task. And all, AI needs is proper data. If you're not going to be in a position to feed it the right data, you're not going to be getting the right sort of results out of AI, right? And that's another opportunity where customers are expecting. Say, for example, I have a goal-based sort of investment, or I want to buy a club membership. I want to go on a vacation. How do I tailor a sort of investment spread only for that need? A lot of these fintech platforms have started goal-oriented sort of investment. Customers are expecting that the same thing from the banks as well. How do I get a customer to invest on the platform, do all kinds of transactions on the platform, not really going out of the platform, right? And that's customer stickiness is where all these elements like AI and observability can also help them.
Absolutely. I think both of you have given a very interesting example of how technology is becoming more and more customer-centric and business-centric in what it can do. And so, Rao, the question to you is, how is technology evolving to help financial organizations achieve these objectives? Are your conversations with your customers, existing customers, prospective customers, talking just about technology, or are they talking about business objectives and customer engagement objectives as well?
Yeah. So typically we look at customers as retail customers, but the other bigger population are the B2B customers, the merchants, the partners, businesses, billers, and so on, right? And typically, when you talk about internal, external perspectives of observability, look at the business teams, BizOps teams, right? Driving growth and revenue, bringing revenue to the institutions. But today they struggle to get real-time visibility of, how the merchants are performing. I have onboarded 10 merchants, but am I getting transaction volumes from these merchants that I've just onboarded, right? They typically still need to wait for end of the week reports, MIS reports, and so on. So when we ingest all this data, collect all this data, what we talk of 360-degree view, and start looking at it, correlating and looking at it from business perspective, so that I'm able to provide real-time visibility of the merchant performance. I'm able to provide the business team and empower them with real-time view of which merchant has given me most transactions, which merchant has grown in the last month, last quarter. It sort of changes the game for the business teams as well, where observability is not about just giving visibility and not relegated to IT teams to drive the resiliency of the operations, but empowers the business teams and the relationship managers to push the envelope with the B2B customers as well, in terms of how they can drive the growth strategies. Yeah. So definitely the external perspective is all about how the customers are interacting with a Swiggy type of interface, or what is the response they get from all the interfacing channels. But the internal perspective is also important, wherein the visibility is sort of unifying the business teams. The visibility is bringing the biz teams together, the IT teams together. Everybody is looking at the same data set, but from different lenses for the common objective of the end customer, who could be a retail customer wanting an instant gratification, or a B2B customer who is all about his business drives on how the enterprise is processing their transactions that are coming in.
Perfect. I think all three of you have given excellent flavors to this question. I've seen that Prasanna has repeatedly talked about AI, so I think we should take up that AI question now. And simple and straightforward, what are the benefits that AI currently is actually giving in terms of helping technology perform better and helping business achieve its goals? AI in observability. Now, Shuchi, let's have you start.
All of us are still in nascent stages of using AI completely. It's not that we are not using, but there are a lot of use cases that are there that we are testing out, that we are working on. But what really can become a huge plus because of using AI, like I'll divide it into three parts. I'll divide it into tech, I'll divide it into customer experience, and I'll divide it into fraud prevention, into three aspects. Okay. In case of tech, most of the times the dashboard says latency breach there, 90% or 100%. Concurrency, we are still away. But what AI can do is, if from a 20 to a 60%, there is a sudden spike, it can give a warning signal that yes, you are not at 90 or 100%, but you will soon get there, do something about it. Or it will also tell you, do what about it if there is enough learning that has happened and gone into the model. In terms of customer experience, again, it's very, very interesting that not only from a relationship perspective, like if a customer has a relationship with the bank, these are the multiple products he or she is holding, and the behavior of the customer, what is it that I can offer more? Now, I am a customer who likes to save money, and I'm not a customer who takes loans. Now, if I'm coming to the platform to break my FD, right? Um, it may take me a very long time because I may not be able to save that up again. So, would it be a sensible thing to give a nudge to Shuchi that Shuchi, you can just take a small OD against your fixed deposit. You don't need to break your fixed deposit, right? And that engagement, not just the product of an upselling, but also when the customer needs it. Not like keep calling the customer, sir, do you want a loan or do you want a product? But this is when I really need something and I don't really want to break my deposit. And that's the perfect time you're giving me an alternate option. I will grab it. Right. So that aspect, again, from customer experience and a relationship point of view becomes very important. Now, the next item is obviously fraud prevention. Earlier, we would use archaic methods, sudden transaction of 50,000 decline. Now, so many customers do 50,000 transactions, you can't like blindly decline them. Look at the customer inconvenience. A person is wanting to spend money somewhere and he or she can't. How do you kind of look at the behavior of the customer? Look at the way the customer types, swipes, the entire behavioral biometric of the customer and the past transactions. Has the customer made the look at all of that data together? And that is where the AI has the capability to tell us, yes, this looks suspicious. Decline this. Don't decline the rest of the 95% of the transactions. They seem genuine. So the scope for AI is immense. And we are already using AI in a lot of the use cases that I'm talking about. And it's giving us good results. But you can't just blindly use AI, right? So you will have to ensure that you keep checking in between. There are no biases there. There is transparency. There are proper controls. There are guardrails. All of those things become extremely important for you to ensure that while you reap the benefits of it, you don't like fall into a sinkhole where you can't come back from. So it has to be a very, very clear balance there.
And would you quickly kind of give a feedback on terms of how fruitful are these initial trials? Do they take a long time to be meaningful or they start giving results quickly?
So some of these start giving results quickly. Like in fraud prevention, we are seeing that, we're using behavioral biometrics and customer behavior, etc. And then it really helps in reducing the false positives. And you're able to get better results much faster. But then a lot of things also depend on organizations in terms of whether I should buy or build, right? And as Prasanna also mentioned, that all our data is in silos. If you have to give a 360-degree view to an AI model, the data has to be there together. How do you bring all of that together in one place and not in silos? Because if the data is not accurate, if data is not complete, there'll be biases. If there are biases, the results will not be good. If the results are not good, you will say the project has failed. It's a cyclical kind of an experience. Also, do you have your manpower trained well enough to be able to use AI effectively? Otherwise, if they are not able to understand and make the right use cases, how are they going to implement those? And if they are not in sync, again, you will have a failed project. So getting all of these loose ends to be tied together is very, very important for a project to be successful or to be classified as failure.
Sounds good. So just to summarize from my perspective, this is not like one more Lego brick that you're adding to a stack of bricks. It's really touching so many places, and there is that people angle to it as well. But you are fairly optimistic, is what you're saying.
I am fairly optimistic about it.
Prasanna, what is your take on AI? What are the low-hanging fruits, and what are the higher-hanging fruits to aim for?
Yeah, I think the bigger picture for me is proactiveness, versus a pure reactive approach that we do today. Most times I have an SRE practice. I have somebody who's always looking at various dashboards, doing all those things. But oftentimes, we do get intimated by customers that, hey, this is not working. And only when, my call center guys, call me in panic saying that something is broken, that I actually get to, know about it. So, with observability tools that are coming out now, and with, of course, AI being, one of the, top trending sort of items that these tools deploy, this is a massive sort of a leg up that we can have in terms of customer success, right? What if I'm able to, understand and, immediately inform the user if he's trying to do something that, hey, there's a problem. Can you give us a few minutes? We are trying to fix it, right? That would go in a long way instead of, him trying to, do it over and over again and, fail it. Like, for example, Suchi spoke about the log out and the other option, close to being each other, right? Close to each other, right? It's just a small intuitive thing, right? And of course, with AI coming into it, not everything is rosy. There are challenges in terms of you need to set yourself to have an explainability in the system that you're trying to build. If the root cause is not being clearly given as an output to you by the AI system, it's not going to result in much. So again, coming back to this whole data, you're right, you feed in junk, you're going to get junk out. So the quality of data that we're going to give to such systems to ensure that the right amount of perspective is coming out of it is paramount. And I think one of the bigger challenges that we are all fighting, right? All large banks, this is a major topic that we are all trying to fight it, right? No single source of truth. We all would love to say that we have a single source of, system which would give me the entire, data that I need, but it doesn't happen that way. And because we're largely disconnected, we have islands of applications that are, floating around, some on cloud, some on, on-prem. So, banks like ours, we are embarking on this whole establishing certain horizontal layers within the bank as a common sort of a layer over which observability stack can be there, irrespective of whether the application is running on your data center or on cloud, so that there's one sort of a digital orchestration sort of a platform where observability comes in and then is able to kind of get the 360 picture of what is happening in your ecosystem, where things are failing, and a proactive approach, right? Like what Suchi mentioned, it doesn't need to hit a 90 or 100%. You can set your threshold. And today, I'm left, holding the monkey by the tail, and I don't want to be doing that. I want to be able to guide it. I want to be able to understand whether, there is a trend that's happening. I know usually, transactions peak during salary times, withdrawals peak during that time. There are a lot of purchases that happen, rental purchase, payments that happen during a particular time. But what are the rest of the times? What are some of the other trends that we are seeing, right? And AI would help us in a big way for sure. But again, it's not as easy as as we can. You mentioned the Lego block, right? It's not like just fitting it into it and then saying, oh, AI will do the job. It's not as easy as that. We still don't have scalability is still an issue. Like Suchi mentioned, we are still, I think, probably about 10% of what we can use, we are trying to use today. There's a whole lot more AI is capable of doing that we are still scratching the surface, to be honest, right? There's still tons of, pilots and POCs that we are doing. Of course, with large institutions, large financial institutions like ours, we always have this data privacy, a lot of other considerations. It's not just about, looking at AI in isolation. So there's so much about, data privacy, how much of PII data is going out of your systems, how do you protect it, how do you tokenize it, how do you mask it, a lot of other considerations that we need to look at. Like she mentioned, the guardrails, right? Those guardrails are absolutely premium. I can't just deploy a tool and expect everything to be hunky-dory from the next day onwards, right? So yeah.
Got it. Just want to add one question to this. The problem that a lot of generative AI is faced is that of hallucination.
Yeah.
So in the controlled pilots and projects and POCs that you're doing in the space of observability, is hallucination a problem or it's not there?
No, with any of these large language models, there is always a hallucination risk that we always try to ensure that it is kept to a minimum. the model risk is definitely there. The hallucination is really a potent risk, but that's why we do ground it. We ensure that the proper grounding of data and the responses are there. We kind of tweak models. These are largely pre-trained models, right? There's nothing you can do to the models. The models are available. They are the chat GPTs of the world. You can't go and change the model. You just need to change the way the model responds to you. So in terms of prompt engineering, in terms of what goes into the model, that's the only control that you have, and that's what we are trying to go do. Yeah.
So Rao, if you can paint the picture for us internally, what does VuNet look at AI as, and externally, what are your customers expecting from you in terms of AI, how they can use it, what they can use it for?
Right. I think Suchi alluded to, the consumer-centric AI of things. Can recommendations be thrown and so on, right? So the way we look at it is there is a consumer or a front-end side of AI, and there's an enterprise side of AI, the back-end AI we call it, right? And that's where I think Prasanna alluded to, can operations be proactive with all the insights that come in? Right today, with the volume and scale of transaction that comes in, it is just inhuman to monitor every transaction. So the entire operations has to be based on exceptions, right? So therefore, can AI throw up those exceptions, right? And for that, as Suchi said, there needs to be a data lake or a place where you're unifying all of these data sets. It is difficult in real life to bring all of this together. But one perspective that I wanted to add is the data that you bring in, if these are all technical metrics, like how is the machine performing, how is the application performing, these are all technical data, right? The reasoning power is limited on that. If you apply AI model on that technical data, the outcome is limited. But the same data set, if you're able to enrich with the risk context, if you're able to enrich with a fraud context or a business context, and then the AI models are applied on this enriched data set, right, the outcome is even more powerful. Example could be, right, maybe a system always processes, say, for example, 100 transactions per second, but suddenly there's a spike in the transaction volume, right? But this fluctuations happen. But this fluctuation happens to be from a dormant merchant or from a tier 2, tier 3 city where you just don't get such volumes or acceptable levels of volumes at all. It is something suspicious, right? That's where AI can come in not just providing some recommendations in terms of how you can do fixes, but more importantly, on the business side of things and fraud side of things, to provide a much more of a proactive signal or an alert that something is going wrong in the system. So the reasoning power when you deploy AI model on an enriched data set is a lot powerful, and that is something that we are constantly trying to do. Given that we have an observability platform, it's a business observability platform, and as Prasanna batted for VuNet, where we're able to link all these signals to the green, red, and so on. But there needs to be a context to the signals and the business context when it added, and the ML models running on top of it. It becomes much more of a powerful mix, and that's the way we are looking at it.
That's fantastic. That's a good example you give. A rising level of transactions could actually be something to be cautious about. That it could be reasoned at from a different perspective. Good.
One thing that I would like to say is there are a lot of rumors that keep floating around, right? That AI will take jobs, or AI is getting misused, and a lot of other things. My only anecdote here is that any new technology, any new invention, any new innovation will be a boon or a bane depending on how you use it, right? So it depends on how we'll end up using it. We've already seen AI being used by heaps and bounds by fraudsters and a lot of other miscreants. How do we use it is very, very important. And it's very important for us as individuals to stay updated, to stay curious about what is it bringing onto the table. How can I gain out of it in my regular life, in my work life, in anything and everything that you do? And I'm not just talking AI. I'm talking anything and everything that comes, because that becomes very important. Don't let that curiosity die. And we've just finished Children's Day, but that curiosity in a child is something that you should always keep alive, because that's extremely, extremely important. And once that is there and you continue to learn, continue to do different things, there is no stopping you, and there is no stopping any organization. So yeah, I think that's my take on it.
Right, absolutely. I fully agree. I find myself to be very, very curious about so many things. and sometimes it really distracts me. But overall, I think it's really good to have that diversity. It's I don't know how to describe it. It's really amazing how it gives you that energy which would otherwise be missing.
Just to share that AI is here to stay. Agentic is definitely the way forward. I think all organizations, if they've not decided to get on board on this journey, it's about high time. It's how the world is going to be in the next few years before we actually get into quantum computing and artificial gentle intelligence and things like that. But I see a lot of benefit in terms of productivity and operational efficiency that can be gained. Like Suchi mentioned, there's a lot of hesitancy towards adopting a certain way of working. In an agentic world, everything changes, right? And people shouldn't be afraid to espouse new technologies. Even if they have to experiment with something, but fail quickly, that's totally fine. But there are a lot of opportunities to build these kind of sophisticated tools into your ecosystem that will help you on a daily basis. Who would want to sit and write meeting notes today, right? I wouldn't definitely like to spend time. Who would want to chunk all kinds of so many millions of pages of data that's coming in and various formats. Instead of that, I would just use a notebook LM to tell me how what the context is. RBI keeps publishing so many policies, right? It's tough to keep keep abreast. So how can I use all these AI tools in my daily life to ensure that it helps me? People should espouse it, not run away from it. It's not going to replace jobs. Yes, of course, some items will cease to exist. The entry level, data entry kind of work may not be in the future. But I think AI is here to stay. I think, of course, we need to have the necessary guardrails in place. Not every system is perfect. You mentioned hallucination. There's bias. There's a lot of other things that we need to ensure that it is not behaving in a bad way. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yep, AI is definitely one of the best solutions we have to information overload today. So yeah, that sounds good. Rao, what do you see? What is your personal perspective on AI in the enterprise space, as used in the enterprise?
No, firstly, thanks to Suchi and Prasanna to hear, the practitioners' view of AI and observability today. So, coming to the topic of AI-powered observability, and the way we look at it, Manoj, and the personal view is observability is all about providing visibility, right? Tells you what's happening. But when you ingest AI into it, it's all about a search engine. It just gives you recommendations, and it's like a Gen AI based. It tells you exactly what you need to do, and to that, if you're able to add a resolution engine, AI-powered business observability will tell you can be hands-off in an ideal world where it tells you what is going wrong, what should be the steps or action that needs to be taken. That's the recommendability part of it. And third, if you have operating procedures that can do some amount of resolutions, what agentic AI-driven resolutions or a typical standard operating procedures which the SRE teams do, then it becomes a powerful combination where observability will power recommendability and it will power resolutions as well. And that is what, in a digital ecosystem, that we need a resilient digital infrastructure for the trust the government has put in, what consumers have taken today, citizens have taken today to embrace digital, transformation, and specifically in the banking technology worldwide. In India, the trust that people have put in, I think this AI is going to help us drive the trust higher. It is going to make more inclusive and also to drive the overall growth of not just technology, I think the economy as well.
Yeah, that sounds good. Essentially, what I'm hearing from you is AI observability is like a force multiplier when it is paired with other systems like resolution to boost trust and growth and stuff like that. I think that's a wonderful takeaway. Thank you so much. So lovely, Suchi, Prasanna, Rao. Absolutely wonderful conversation. Lots of flavors, lots of takeaways, good insights. I think it's good to see the financial sector take up the challenges using the tools of observability, of AI, marrying together all the opportunities, solving the complexities, and ultimately creating a system that all kinds of customers, individuals, corporates, merchants, SMEs, and government it's helping them achieve their needs. I think this is helping the financial sector integrate deeper and be comfortably deep inside people's lives, enriching the quality of lives. On that note, I'd like to thank all of you for this wonderful conversation. And I'm looking forward to more such conversations. And I hope all of you get opportunity to have such meaningful conversations again in the future. Thank you all very much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for having us here.
Thank
Lovely
you.
interacting with all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
you.
Manoj.
Thank you.
Thanks, Suchi, Prasanna.
Bye.
Pleasure.
Thank you, viewers, listeners, people who have tuned in. Hope you like this conversation.